Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime on my Media Prime. This evening, we are going to be asking and answering the question as to whether the world has forgotten about the ongoing crisis in Cameroon, specifically the ongoing Anglophone crisis rocking the southwest and northwest regions. Very little is spoken about it in the international, African, and even some civil society organizations in Cameroon are speaking very little about it. If time permits, we are also going to be looking at what is happening in the northwest and southwest regions, finding out why some communities openly rising up against separatist fighters. We've seen videos from Balangi 2 days ago. Yes, today we have seen videos from Oku. We saw videos from Boyo and a host of other communities. What has gone wrong? Where are these people taking their courage to be able to openly say separatist leaders should leave their communities? Is there anything that could be done to fix the situation? We are discussing this with our panelists who are in the house. Apostle Ambi Valentine Goa is in the house with us. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Cameroonians. Good evening, Africans. And good evening to the world. You're welcome to today's edition of our Prime Hour. We are still talking about the Anglophone crisis. We will not stop talking until there is a permanent solution to this calamity that has befallen our country. Stay tuned as we bring you very, very creative and intelligent information.
Okay. Are you also, do you also have the impression that the crisis is no longer as important as it used to be to the world?
Yes, Mr. Leo, from every strata, diplomatically, psychologically, physically, and even from the support of the people on ground, the crisis is gradually losing steam. It's losing steam from all facets because a lot of things have come into play. I've always said that the world has a scale of preference, and that scale of preference actually has the most important priorities on its scale. And since the Ukraine-Russian crisis started, the crisis in Africa has been mellowed down. They've become issues of secondary intention. The primary objective right now, the world is focused, is Ukraine and Russia. And that so Africans can die as many as they can. It doesn't matter, it doesn't bother them. You also know that when the COVID-19 equally came, it became a priority. That was a focus that actually caused the Anglophone crisis and many other African crises to be kept as a very secondary issues, while the other pertinent issues became the primary. So I've realized that Africa doesn't fall on the scale of preference when it comes to world politics and diplomacy. It doesn't come on the scale of preference when it comes to international relations and the burden for humanity. Africa is also always considered as the underdog, and actually our own issues are treated when there is nothing serious.
Okay. We also in the company of the room, Emmanuel, actor of Cameroon Civil Society. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Thank you for the invitation. And a special one to those watching us from Giniki Gem, those watching from Ginicom, and all those watching us from the Prime Hour area in Fundong. We are giving you people a shout out this night.
Okay. We also are in the company of Mr. Chunda?
Eric Chumba.
Eric Chumba, who is representing the Cameroon Renaissance Movement on this platform. Bonsoir et bienvenue.
Bonsoir Léo, bonsoir à vos milliers d'auditeurs. Je voudrais déjà ce soir adresser un bonsoir à mes amis politiques qui sont incarcérés au Cameroun sans raison ni cause, juste parce qu'on a osé marcher. Aujourd'hui, on se retrouve à avoir des peines lourdes au Cameroun. Je pense que les Camerounais comprennent aujourd'hui que nous sommes dans une monarchie, nous ne sommes pas dans une république. Nous sommes dans un État où le pouvoir est entre les mains d'une seule personne. Il fait de ce pays ce qu'il veut, il nous divise, il nous sépare. Et en fait, il y a des guerres partout, pas de paix, pas de réussite, même au pouvoir économique, tout est en baisse. Nous espérons tout simplement il faut savoir que l'opposition au Cameroun est la boussole qui pourrait servir à un gouvernement de s'orienter. L'opposition est la toise qui permet à un gouvernement de connaître sa propre taille. elle est également le miroir sur lequel un gouvernement devait se refléter. Donc l'opposition est une association qui dénonce, qui décrit, qui aide et qui participe justement à la vie sociale de chaque pays. Donc je pense que nous, MRC, c'est ce que nous essayons de faire, nous le ferons tant qu'on pourra et nous espérons tout simplement que la raison prendra la place sur la passion et que ceux qui sont aujourd'hui passionnés par des gains et par des intérêts personnels, qui sachent que l'hymne national du Cameroun nous dit au Cameroun, berceau de nos ancêtres. Nous sommes un pays de nos ancêtres et on nous demande, va debout, sois jaloux de ta liberté. Donc c'est une prescription. Chaque Camerounais devait dénoncer. Quand il se sent à l'aise, quand il se sent mal à l'aise, quand il se sent défectueux, il devait le dire haut et fort. Et on précise encore que les enfants du Nord aussi de l'Est à l'Ouest soient tout amour. Donc je pense que nous avons tous un devoir de nous aimer tous et de participer à l'évolution de ce pays parce qu'on le dit encore, notre but devait de servir ce pays et ce n'est pas de nous servir mais de servir notre pays pour notre intérêt collectif et général.
Okay, I've started with you, Apostle Ambi Valentin Ngwa. What would actually have accounted for the silence, if I may say so, of the international community to what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest regions? You already evoked the thesis of COVID-19 and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Is that justifiable?
Yes, Mr. Liu, if you look at it critically, our crisis in Cameroon preceded the crisis in Ukraine. But if you look at the measures given to the countries that are involved in the crisis in Ukraine, you will understand that the whole world is focused towards Ukraine. Never has the UN, Security Council, and the United States of America and NATO gathered against a particular nation for menacing a lesser nation like Ukraine. All the sanctions given to Russia, all the support given to Ukraine, and every focus was on Russia. EU will hold meetings, NATO will hold meetings, United Nations will hold meetings, European Union holds meetings just because of the crisis. Zelensky is talking. Africa and everywhere are being forced to support. Africans are compelled to denounce the crisis in Ukraine. Nobody was compelled in Europe to denounce the crisis in southern Cameroon. In the South African president wrote and said they shouldn't force him to denounce Russia because Russia has been of aid to them in their times past. You look at it now, Kenyan embassy, Ukrainians are pleading for support from Kenyan embassy to support the war, and they are urging all African presidents to make sure they denounce Russia. But that was something that never occurred when the Anglophone crisis started in Cameroon. So you realize that the focus in Ukraine and in Russia is very more important and so huge and heavy, more than what is happening in the southern Cameroons, number one. Number two, the people themselves within the cycle of the southern Cameroons are making the crisis very unpopular. I mean the leadership. There have been a recent clash, a recent division, a recent confusion amongst the leadership of the southern Cameroonians who happen to have been the ones forging ahead. There have equally been a rise in certain communities against the atrocities meted by the boys upon the citizens of that community. So you look at all these factors put in place, they are contributing vehemently to make sure the crisis becomes very unpopular and forgotten. And that is the reason why we are saying that it looks like there is no crisis anymore, because we are no longer seeing the hits that we used to feel in 2016, 2017. Even though actions are taking place in a few places, but the actions are not as they were in the past. So if you look again at the international level, despite all what Russia is doing, the countries that be in Europe and America have concluded or gang up themselves to fight against Russia as a nation. Everybody's focus is on Russia. You've not heard U.S. Congress speak as they used to speak. You've not heard U.S. Senate speak as they used to speak. U.S. says everything now is centered around Ukraine. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. It was even the United States of America that was even trying at first to say some few things about the Anglophone crisis. But since they drifted the attention, like what happened in the year of the Gulf War in 1994, when America lost focus towards Chad, when Ivsana Bray was in power, because Ivsana Bray was a stooge kept by the Americans in Chad. When Ivsana Bray was a stooge there, Americans lost focus towards Chad and paid attention towards Kuwait, the crisis in the Gulf War in Iran, Kuwait and Iraq. That was when France took over Chad and then kicked out Ivsana Bray and brought in Idris Deby. That is the reason why I'm saying that the crisis occurring right now in Ukraine, which is the #1 priority in the world, has given the Southern Cameroon a no recognition. As a matter of fact, almost everybody in the world, and even Cameroonians, are being asked to support Ukraine and fight against Russia, of which we have crises pending in this country which are even stronger than what is happening in the country of Ukraine. So it tells you that we are not on the scale of preference when it comes to world politics. We are not a priority. We are treated as leftovers. If I thought there is nothing pressing in Europe and America, that's when a little focus, and what is the focus, is we renounce, we renounce, we denounce, we renounce. Practical steps are not taken. But in Ukraine, you discover they are constantly giving sanctions to Russia, and nobody has been sanctioned in Africa. Neither the separatist sanction to stop the crisis or the government sanction to stop the crisis. But Russia has been giving sanctions upon sanctions upon sanctions upon sanctions upon us in every strata, and the war keeps increasing. Russia is causing atrocities, bombing down cities in Ukraine, bombing down theaters in Ukraine, killing individuals and even little children. They keep giving only sanctions and sanctions and sanctions and sanctions. While persons have equally died in southern Cameroon in their numbers, neither both sides are sanctioned. Why would they be fast to give Russia sanction for attacking Ukraine because they're lesser power, and they don't sanction a country that is also killing its own people by the lesser population, or sanction the people they claim are rebels or terrorists? So you discover that Africa should know, and I'm still repeating it on this platform, that we are not, I repeat, a priority when it comes to international diplomacy and world politics. We are only treated as leftovers when there is nothing serious on ground. As long as there's something serious in Europe, Asia, and America, and even the Middle East, we are not going to have any focus on the earth. As much as things keep deteriorating between Russia and Ukraine, the Anglophone crisis will not even be spoken of in any quarters in the international scene.
Okay, are you also surprised at what is happening, or you can understand why the situation is the way it is?
Well, if I said I'm surprised, then I am surprised over nothing, Mr. Leo. We are talking about how the Anglophone crisis has been forgotten by the world. Indeed, Apostle well elaborated on that. But I want to look at it from this angle. You know, they always say charity begins from home. And when they say charity begins from home, charity never ends at home. We have a National Assembly in this country that has never spoken about this crisis. We have a Senate that has never spoken about this crisis. We have AU in Africa that has remained or ended at the level of denunciation, and they have said little or nothing about the war in Northwest and Southwest. Now, one thing we must underline in a blueprint is that the Anglophones had a genuine case which has been rigged and taken over by different armed groups who are making financial gains from it. It has become a scam. The world would have very much been alert, Mr. Liu, to talk about our case if those who pretended that they were the leaders of the Anglophones sold our case the right way. But then, I think those who have sold our case the wrong way are those who are in diaspora, who have taken it as a scam to make their money. Because today, you hear that Group A is fighting against Group B. Tomorrow, Group B is fighting against Group C. And the groups keep being proliferated every day. They keep being multiplied. The question now is, as they are multiplying, who is speaking for who? Who mandated you to speak for who? Because we had a genuine case that for decades Anglophones have been treated like second-class citizens. It came up the way it came. People presented themselves as leaders, of which Southern Cameroonians very much believed in them. But what has happened? Mr. Liu, I followed an interview on my Media Prime platform on the program 90 Minutes in Africa. And this is what Thibault Nagy said, and I quote: "The Anglophone crisis is not making a lot of history in Europe and America because those who are called the Anglophone leaders have not been able to speak with one voice. until they shall be able to speak with one voice and tell the world what they want exactly. That is when the world shall listen to them. That was Thibaut Nagy talking. And us who are back on the ground, we have been asking the same question. What does AGOF stand for? What does, how do they call it? Whether the groups, there are many. You cannot even think of them because you don't know which group wants what. Which group represents the interests of the people. We have discovered of late that the infighting within the different groups is more than the fighting between those groups and Yaoundé. When this thing came up, they presented themselves as the messiahs to the Anglophones, and the Anglophones accepted them. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, but as time went on, people came face to face with the reality that these people had a hidden agenda, and that agenda was to rig a genuine case to turn it into money-making scam. I think that can explain why Anglophone crisis today is almost becoming a forgotten story. But people keep dying. Like Apostle said a while ago, if we are still thinking that the world shall cry more than they bereave, we are making a mistake. Because look at what is happening in Ukraine. In every international scene, every international radio, they are talking about it. But for 6 years going, all those channels that are talking about Ukraine, Russia today,
said very little about Cameroon.
Said very little. Even the Ukraine where they are fighting and we are here defending, cry for them. I'm not sure that a radio station or a TV station in Ukraine ever spoke of Southern Cameroon. I'm not sure. Okay. So there's a bias somewhere. But then that bias can be justified by the kind of leaders that came out to champion the Anglophone cause.
Ok. Monsieur Tunda, Chumba, est-ce qu'on peut comprendre le silence de la communauté internationale par rapport à ce qui se passe au Cameroun aujourd'hui, surtout sur la crise anglophone?
Vous savez, j'ai honte. À un moment donné, je ne sais pas si c'est à tort d'être noir. Je ne sais pas si c'est un handicap international d'être noir, de telle manière que ça dit que lorsque vous souffrez, lorsque vous criez, lorsque vous vous plaignez, personne ne vous entend et vous vous rendez compte que bien souvent, c'est encore ceux qui nous dirigent, qui sont censés justement protéger nos intérêts, qui nous mettent justement dans la pâture et qui nous donnent autant de souffrances que nous avons aujourd'hui. La communauté internationale ne s'est jamais pris vraiment de la hauteur à s'occuper de ce problème anglophone aujourd'hui qui est au Cameroun. Ce qui est triste, tout est parti de quoi d'abord à la base? Parce qu'au plan juridique, qu'on aille à la base, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Il s'est passé que les gens qui sont des avocats, qui sont des personnalités harcèlementées. On ne peut pas comprendre dans un pays que les avocats qui ont prêté serment, avec leurs toses et leurs robes, marchent et tout ce qu'on trouve à leur faire, c'est de les opprimer. On se rend toujours compte qu'en principe, les enseignants marchent, tout ce qu'on trouve à faire, c'est les opprimer. On a l'impression que nous sommes totalement dans une monarchie chez le Cameroun parce qu'il n'y a rien qui peut satisfaire à l'évolution de notre pays et à sa culture et à la diversité culturelle que nous avons au Cameroun. Qu'est-ce que les anglophones ont fait, s'il faut le dire dans ce sens, aux francophones? Quel est le tort qu'on les reproche? Mais tout le monde peut se revendiquer un jour, même autour de la table aujourd'hui, on peut se mettre en colère, mais le but essentiel est de savoir dialoguer avec des gens.
Oui, mais pourquoi est-ce que les gens n'en parlent plus?
Mais les gens n'en parlent pas tout simplement parce qu'au Cameroun, il y a un mécanisme qui est un mécanisme de police. C'est-à-dire que c'est la police partout et la justice nulle part. Observez bien la vie politique au Cameroun. Et il faut qu'on le dise. L'opposition est là pour ça. La vie politique au Cameroun n'est qu'engendrée que par une seule personne. Elle est la seule qui décide de toute chose.
C'est pour cela que les gens n'en parlent pas.
Mais justement parce que les gens n'en parlent pas.
On a vu ce qui s'est passé à l'université de Bamenda où les élèves ont fui l'école après les tirs. On a vu ce qui se passe à Oku. Est-ce qu'on peut cacher cela? Est-ce que le gouvernement a besoin de tolérer qu'on en parle à l'international?
Léo, j'attire votre attention pour vous dire que si vous observez comment se passe la gestion au Cameroun, observez très bien que l'autre jour, il y a eu la grève des enseignants. Toute chose qui se passe au Cameroun, le ministre, quel que soit le ministre, il n'a qu'un rapport à rendre. Il n'a aucune décision à prendre. Tout va remonter à la présidence de la République pour qu'une décision soit prise.
Mais je ne veux pas qu'on penche trop sur le gouvernement. On sait ce que le gouvernement du Cameroun peut faire et ce qu'ils sont en train de faire. Qu'est-ce qui empêche la communauté internationale de regarder sur ce qui se passe? Est-ce qu'ils n'ont pas des agences résidentes au Cameroun? Est-ce qu'il faut que c'est le gouvernement qui les interdisent de communiquer? Il y a les ambassades ici.
Je pense qu'il faudrait mettre une pression énorme auprès du gouvernement parce que je tiens à vous rappeler qu'Amnesty International, qui justement avait, en fait, si vous voulez, en principe, faisait des rapports de la guerre au nord-ouest, vous vous rappelez très bien que le gouvernement l'avait interdit de remettre encore pied dans les zones de guerre. Or, pourtant, Amnesty International est une organisation qui, très souvent, dans toutes les guerres, en principe, essaye aussi d'apporter sa contribution, que ce soit au plan militaire de santé, que ce soit en principe à soigner les blessés, à faire tout ça. Mais le problème qui se pose, c'est que aucune diplomatie au Cameroun jusqu'aujourd'hui, particulièrement la France, nous sommes vraiment surpris que la France ne dit rien, avec autant de morts qu'il y a au niveau du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest, avec autant d'entreprises qui ont fermé au nord-ouest et au sud-ouest, avec autant de chômage qu'il y a eu au nord-ouest et au sud-ouest. Tout ce truc ont pesé aussi sur l'économie du Cameroun aujourd'hui, parce qu'il faut le dire, le Cameroun, on a tendance à masquer, à croire que tout va bien, mais tout ne va pas bien. Parce que dans un pays normal, où vous trouvez que les gens peuvent avoir l'affection, peut être fraternelle, vous vous rendez compte qu'en principe, quand il y a un problème sur eux qui s'oppose, des conséquences peuvent être liées aussi à d'autres choses comme au pouvoir économique. Or, personne n'a fait quelque chose là-dessus. Déjà, l'Assemblée nationale, qui en a parlé à l'Assemblée nationale? Je tiens à rappeler que certains députés du Nord-Ouest qui ont eu le courage de le parler ont été poursuivis, ont été menacés.
Okay.
Ont été menacés même très souvent. Et je tiens à rappeler que je prends encore le cas même du feu Kalina Tomi, qui a apporté sa contribution à ce qu'il y ait quelque chose qui peut être fait pour que la paix soit au moins puisse régner peut-être au nord-ouest ou au sud-ouest. Aujourd'hui, on a eu l'impression peut-être que la guerre était terminée. Vous voyez que elle est c'est un feu qui n'est pas totalement éteint, qui va encore renaître, peut-être encore des jours à venir et peut-être même des mois encore à venir. Parce que tant qu'il n'y aura pas un dialogue inclusif, sérieux, pour entendre tout le monde, pour écouter vraiment la difficulté pour laquelle les gens vivent, je pourrais vous rassurer que la paix ne sera pas de ce jour-là. Parce que non seulement ça, ce n'est que l'oppression qui continue. Ce n'est que l'oppression, 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 l'oppression. Je pense qu'en ce moment, ça va mettre tout le monde en colère. Et lorsque les gars ont commencé, c'était juste des revendications sécessionnistes, c'était des revendications socialistes, enfin, des revendications de société, et qui auraient pu trouver des solutions à ça.
Vous êtes toujours en train de sortir Vous ne me parlez pas des nationales. Vous ne me parlez pas pourquoi l'ONU et tout ça ne vient pas.
Je
parle seulement...
Oui, écoutez, je suis en train... Je dis ceci...
On a trop parlé du gouvernement. Aujourd'hui, on voulait aussi regarder...
Je vous dis justement qu'il faudrait une pression. C'est à tort si l'ONU ne s'est pas mêlée à cette affaire, puisqu'ils ont des représentations aussi. Il y a une représentation de l'ONU.
Justement, le secrétaire général n'était pas là.
Justement, il était là.
Le secrétaire général de la francophonie était là. Tout le monde était là, non?
Justement, je vous dis donc, quel est donc le problème donc, pour qu'il lâche aujourd'hui ce problème qui se pose dans la zone anglophone aujourd'hui? Donc, on a vraiment l'impression que le Cameroun a abandonné et les anglophones sont abandonnés. C'est-à-dire que le peuple camerounais a abandonné les anglophones particulièrement parce qu'on ne trouve aucune raison. Moi, je tiens à vous rappeler que même au niveau...
Non, monsieur, vous monopolisez.
Non, excusez-moi, je crois que c'est mon temps de parole. Bon, je vais chuter, peut-être je vais chuter. Juste pour dire, non, écoutez, je voulais justement dire que je pense qu'il faudrait des démarches très sérieuses à ce qu'on oblige le gouvernement camerounais, à ce que vraiment qu'il y ait des solutions qui soient trouvées dans cette guerre-là.
Severally we have spoken about whether we could depend on the international community. For some time now, we've not discussed about that, and certainly for a very long period, nothing is echoed from the international community, be it at the European Union like it used to be some 3 years ago, at the U.S. Congress and all of that. What is happening? Because, and you severally have said here that we should not depend on the international community.
Yes, of course, we cannot depend on the international community to come in and solve our home problems. Now, Cameroon being an integral part of the world has its own obligations. And the world likewise has several obligations with regards to how we have to live together in the globe, bearing in mind that if a part in the war is hit, then the war can be affected totally. Let's just have a few seconds into what is happening in Ukraine. Today we are talking about price hike. Today the bread that we used to buy for 300 is sold for 400 and 350 in some places. This is to tell you already that there is no part of the war which, if it's taken away, it will not affect the others. Coming back to Cameroon, the crisis in Cameroon needs marketing, and the marketing in this case cannot be done by certain actions on the ground. Yeah, I think we are looking at why is the war silent with regards to the crisis in Cameroon. However, we should not forget that the Anglophone problem is still lying in some of the offices of the United Nations, the African Union, the European Parliament, the Congress in the United States of America, and the list will keep on going on. Listening from their diplomat back at home, you can tell that they already know about this problem. But what is happening on the ground is they have certain principles put in place to intervene or to press forward or to put more pressure to get solutions to problems which we are all facing. Now, and these things, sometimes you could shoot yourself on the leg, and sometimes you could cause somebody to sympathize with you. I think on the part of the Anglophones, I want to take it from when it was hijacked by the non-state armed groups to up to date. Now, when this all started, we all know that the non-state armed groups were not anything to it. But know that we have had the NCNC in the past, which have submitted several petitions at the UN. And there have been several pressure mounted on the government of Cameroon to see how they could solve these problems. But when it came to the limelight, which was very good on the other hand and not good on the other hand, very good in what sense? It was but obvious that when a people decided to come together to tell you, their father, that at this point they are not comfortable with the way you're treating them, that was in 2016. It was enough for the government to listen. But when the government was about to listen to the people, another set of people set in, which are the armed groups on the ground. This came now and shot the people on the leg. And it is so sad that these persons are coming from within. And you know, the international community has its own way. At the beginning of this crisis, they were speaking because most of the videos and most of the evidence that were coming up, it was presenting the state forces being so repressive on the people. But later on, when the armed groups on the ground began putting several videos and audios on the social media, presenting to the world how they can behead, how they can chop off somebody's body part without any remorse or fear, it made some of these guys who would have set in to solve this problem to look at it as not worth being or not worth taking their time. And this is where the greatest problem now set in. Mr. Leo, when you look at the European Union, they may be doing something from behind, but their modus operandi is they will not accept crimes in the course of presenting your problems. The African Union, likewise, in as much as we know that the African Union is a bench, this is what I put it. The African Union is a bench in the European Union. It is not actually a union independent like the European Union. It is a bench because the European Union has a permanent seat in the African Union. And where the African Union is, its headquarters was financed, and most of its funds is coming from the European Union and other unions. So the African Union is a bench to some of these unions or to some of these organizations. So it became very difficult for the Anglophones to have the world listen to their cry. Another thing that caused the world to go silent is the level with which some of the Anglophones are going about it. I don't want to look so much into what those in the diaspora are doing. Of course, we all know that those in the diaspora have decided to afflict pain on the people on the ground. Reason number one, if you look at their calls to the fighters on the ground, they are telling the fighters to be very repressive on the people they want to liberate, in quote. Now, you cannot liberate a person by being the same way the person cried off. That is to say that if we are saying that the military on the ground in some places wreaked havoc, and you expect somebody to come in to soften or to make the situation better with claims that he or she is fighting for you and is doing the same thing the latter person did or the former person did, it will be very obvious that at the end of the day, you will not have people who want to sympathize with you. Look at what is happening in Oku, for example. Look at what is happening in, I think, in Bu or Cook a few days ago, where we saw the people, they came out telling the non-state armed groups that it is enough. Now, if you were a government that want to listen to these people, this is what you would be thinking of. This is the same community which supported the boys at the beginning and doesn't want the boys. Therefore, you would want to assume that all what the government is saying with regards to putting solutions in place, it is working. But what I'll be telling the world is we should not forget that the Anglophone crisis we are talking about today is the armed crisis. But the Anglophone problem which we have had for all these years is still there. The marginalization is still there. And this is what I think that we as Cameroonians should sit and look into it. Yes, some people may want to say that the Anglophones now have certain ministers, but I want to differ with some of these people. These ministers, as we all see, a majority of the people see them to be elite for Yaoundé, not elite for them. And the Anglophones have been crying for people that will represent them. That is to say that, look at the situation of cholera today in Boya, for example. They want somebody that will be there to listen to them and understand that they need more sanitary kits. They need more persons to sensitize them. They need more persons to provide them with good drinking water. They need more persons to provide them with road. These are just a few of what is giving the world reasons to be there for regards to our crisis.
I want us to understand this from Julius Choffer, who is always watching. Someone may have to react to him. It says, good evening to you and your panel, Mr. Leo. Your panelists are supposed to be experts, but if they ask questions like, who mandated them? Which group stands for what? Why are they fighting each other? It suggests that they don't know what is going on. If they do not know that the Cameroon government has infiltrated both on ground, has infiltrators both on the ground and in the diaspora, they cannot be called experts and are just another group of people letting down the people of southern Cameroon. Julius Chofo writing from the United Kingdom. Julius Chofo thinks that the diaspora members have been infiltrated. The mothers who came out in Oku are infiltrated. Those in Balangi were infiltrated, and some of the areas.
Yeah.
Should we still hang on this argument today?
Well, let me attempt answering him. The truth of the matter is the Anglophone crisis is not the only crisis so far that has ever existed on earth. We had a crisis in Papua New Guinea some years ago where Bougainville, their most flourishing region, wanted to secede from the main country. The other country also infiltrated these guys, but they knew who they were and what they wanted. If these guys who represent the southern Cameroonians knew who they were, know what they wanted, and knew who were their company, they will not infiltrate them. You cannot infiltrate me and my wife because I know my wife and I know my wife knows me. So when you say they are infiltrated, it means there is poor management. People can only infiltrate a group of persons who are not first and foremost united, who don't know what they want, and who don't know where they are going to. Because if you know what you want, you know where you are going to, and you know with whom you are working with, any plan that comes with a contrary idea, a contrary direction towards that particular goal and initiative, you will know the person as a blackleg or an infiltrator. When they say they are infiltrated, those are very, very menial excuses for the poor leadership where the people counted on. So, Mr. Julius Chofo, I know you watch this program often and you always write and give analysis concerning it, but to be sincere with you, our fathers who were in the Eastern Regional House in Enugu in 1953 had political differences, but they had a common goal. Their common goal was to back out of the Eastern Regional House because of the scare, the Igbo scare, the marginalization of the Igbo by the southern Cameroonians. These people came up from that particular political garden, that parliament, and they formed KNDP, KNC, all the Mbiles, the Fonchas, the Indelis, the Juas, and the rest, the Muketes. when they came out of the Asian regional house, the fact that they had different political parties, it was only a clear indication that they had differences in political ideology, but they had a common goal. Let's accept that Sukadev, Agov, IG, name them as many as possible. They had a particular objective, even though they had different political ideologies, but they had a particular goal. No government, no society will be able to penetrate them. These people in Bougainville also had infiltrators. If you go and study the Bougainville crisis with Papua New Guinea, they had infiltrators. It happened for some years, but they only came back and realized that the enemy was only manipulating them. And they stood their ground and fought. It was New Zealand that came because Australia even blocked their sea from supplying them food. It was New Zealand that came and stood as a broker and solved that problem. So to me, it boils down on leadership. The leadership is porous, the leadership is bad, and those who are driving the head of the train have allowed the wagons to fall in a ditch.
Okay, they've allowed the wagons to fall in a ditch. You were responding there to Mr. Julius Chofo. I hope he's satisfied with what you just said. But the diaspora, I want you very briefly, and then he'll come in. Has the diaspora done enough to solve the crisis? Because he said, he raised the issue that if the international community needs to talk more, it means that in the early days they've received the reports. You know, you receive a report and you need to buttress this report. You need with facts and convincing. Has the diaspora done enough to convince the international community on what they stand for?
I want to begin by saying that...
Because that international community is out there, and it is the diaspora that has the direct contact with them.
Yeah, I want to let you understand that nobody can cry more than the bereaved.
Okay.
The issue is, if you look at international medias, the way they're handling the Ukraine crisis right now, if you have watched American election, there is nothing that has been handled on CNN as compared to the Ukraine crisis. Ukraine crisis is running with the same trend U.S. election is running on CNN. But you will never see any crisis in Cameroon or any African country on CNN constantly. You won't see it on Al Jazeera. You won't see it on Press TV. You will not see it on BBC. Why? It's because I have said it and I'm still repeating it. If we don't cry in our own funeral, nobody will help cry for us. The social media is a platform through which we as Africans should sell what we are going through. Sell our values, sell our crisis there. There is no way you can avoid us because social media is not a particular group of people. If the CNN has its editorial line that does not permit African crisis to be shared on their screen, I don't think Facebook has editorial lines against that. I don't think YouTube, I don't think Instagram, I don't think TikTok, I don't think any of those other media platforms have editorial lines that block us from sharing our worries there. The persons who are supposed to carry this thing into every nook and cranny in this nation and the world are in the Cameroonians, the Southern Cameroonians, are the ones to sell their worries. All the images that left this country when the crisis started on social media everywhere. As a matter of fact, social media has even come to facilitate communication, to expatiate and give us a wider spectrum of what is happening in Cameroon. But now you are expecting the international community. I've asked you, you and I are Cameroonians, go and watch CNN. You will realize that they talk Ukraine after every 30 minutes. Go to Al Jazeera. They give you detailed report of Ukraine right to where theaters are being bombed. Where have you seen an image of the Anglophone crisis showed on CNN? What you see, they say, crisis, Anglophone crisis. When they pass a line at the toll bar, we say they have announced Anglophone crisis on CNN. It becomes news. While you have pictures of theaters being bombed, we have pictures of little children crying in Ukraine. We have pictures of Ukrainians blocking Russian soldiers from entering live on CNN. You see, Amampo has a report. This man has a report. This one, they call all kinds of experts. They are giving you direct report from Kiev, from all the other towns. That is to tell you that we are not a priority. Because if we were to be a priority, that those multimedias would have been able to carry this particular crisis to a particular extent. But no, the images we had there where children were killed in different places and Those images were supposed to be run on CNN. Do you think that the American government does not have those things? They have those images. Do you think Al Jazeera don't have it? They have it. But because we are not the priority. Last time it was Barcelona that wanted to secede from Spain. Immediately that price spoke up. You saw it on CNN, and UN had landed there immediately in the street. You will see how Barcelonians were just shooting stones on Spanish authorities. It was live. Let something happen tomorrow in France. I mean, just a bomb blast in any neighborhood. CNN will carry it, France will carry it, BBC will carry it. It looks like the media, and then the worst of it is that most of our African brothers want to draw information from people like CNN, BBC to analyze things in Africa. How do you expect strangers to tell us what is happening in our country? How do you expect?
Okay.
What we need to know concerning Africa comes from my media prime, comes from other countries, other media here, not from CNN.
But unfortunately, people, those who are watching will tell you that what you're saying is a lie. That is the unfortunate thing, because you believe CNN, and what you say now, they'll say, maybe you have received some money from somewhere.
Yes, Mr. Luke asked a question. I just wanted to corroborate you that it is so easy for most of them. You see some of them on Facebook or CPM picking or whatsoever. Maybe some just useless kind of fellows who just CPM picking. About people
CPM Pikin is my friend. I'm sending special greetings to you, CPM Pikin. You can write more.
Yes. Is your friend?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If it's your friend, tell him that he should install more on Facebook.
Yes.
But next time, I would like to meet him on your platform so that we can.
He should write more. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question here is, it has to do with how much selling is the diaspora doing to the international community of the crisis that is ongoing, because you have to insult people on social media. What we need to do is to open doors. Meet those diplomats there.
Like I said when I took the microphone the first time, I told you that the world, even if the world could not channel more energy in talking about Anglophone crisis the way we wanted them, they would have done it somehow comparatively better than what they're doing today. If those who are championing the cause were presenting the cause to them the right way, how do you listen to somebody who comes to you that my people are being killed in Cameroon every day? He comes in the morning, he presents himself as the leader of the Anglophone. Another one comes in midday, say I am for Sokadef.
And he's insulting.
And he's insulting the person who came in the morning for Anglophone. In the evening, another person comes and say I am the leader of ADF. Insulting the first two who came in the morning, but talking in the name of the same people, same population. You have mispresented your problem. It is like a patient who goes to the hospital and then is unable to tell the doctor exactly the illness that brought him to the hospital. It makes it difficult and very complicated for the doctor to know when to start doing diagnosis. And at the end of the day, the treatment to that sickness will delay. Because if you went to the hospital telling the doctor that I have stomach problem, the doctor knows that I have to start from this place. If you have headache, if you went to the doctor and you just presented yourself, at the same time you are telling the doctor that I am capable of treating my illness, but I'm coming to you because I want a treatment. You are confusing the doctor, Mr. Liu. So the case of Southern Cameroon or the Anglophones has been mispresented. When we just say diaspora, we are not saying it right. There are different diaspora. There are those who think that the case should have been channeled without the use of arms. There are those who think that using arms was the shortcut. But if you make a flashback to from 2016 to date, you would have discovered that if the Anglophone community has achieved just 2% of what they were asking, it was in the days when the consortium was still in place. Mm-hmm. They had not taken out arms. Mm-hmm. When the arms came in, the government, whom we know and we believe till today that they declared the war because they are the one who shot the first bullet. That one should not be disputed. The government took it as an advantage to defend the cause even to the international world, to tell them that, look, we are defending the territorial integrity. Another area where I think we should be looking at is that the international community that happened to be in Cameroon has been muzzled by our own government. Let's look at the case of Hilaria Arigozi, the Human Rights Watch report of Angabo, and what befell her after that report. I have discovered that since then, she made some steps behind, and she has not been vocal again. She comes out, she goes back to her shell. You have the case of Doctors Without Borders in Cameroon, and Médecins Sans Frontières. You see that there was a great tussle between them and the Cameroonian government that finally made some of them to be picked up, and then they are gradually withdrawing. I read a communique yesterday saying that they have stopped the activities around Manfe because of some of the members that were picked up by the Cameroonian government. But then it comes back to us, like you asked in the question, who is supposed to sell the crisis? We are supposed to sell it, and if we don't sell it right, those who are supposed to buy it will not buy it right. That's the truth. So the diaspora needs to retain, like Thibaut Nagy said, until you people shall speak with one voice, give a clear definition of what you want for your community. No international community shall come out clearly to tell you that we are giving you support. And I think Thibaut Nagy was right. Because even our mothers back in the village, most of them are more confused today than they were in 2016. Most of them, they don't know the way forward. Because they had a lot of confidence and belief for these people in diaspora, of which, over time, that confidence has faded out, Mr. Liu. So we need to know that Anglophone crisis, if the world is not listening to us today, we have contributed in one way or the other to make them not to listen to our case.
Ok, la classe politique elle-même, il n'en parle pas beaucoup, hein, parce que, oui, avant, le MLC parlait de ça, tous les autres parlaient de ça, mais aujourd'hui, vous êtes aussi silencieux sur ce qui se passe dans le nord-ouest et le sud-est.
Mais Lio, quand tout à l'heure j'ai essayé un peu de développer un peu cet enjeu politique, peut-être tu ne m'as pas bien écouté, parce qu'il faut dire que même aux côtés des anglophones, ils ont fait beaucoup d'efforts lorsque la guerre a commencé pour que ils trouvaient des solutions pour que cette guerre puisse un peu s'arrêter. Je ferai aussi allusion, souvenez-vous que dans le même ordre, dans la même période, on avait arrêté, c'est-à-dire on avait complètement arrêté le système informatique, c'est-à-dire que le système Internet des rapports en fait entre la zone anglophone et le monde entier. Moi, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, si les gens n'en parlent pas beaucoup, les gens en ont tellement parlé. Et je pense que nous-mêmes au MRC, nous ne sommes pas aux élections parce qu'il y avait ce problème de guerre dans nos revendications. C'est ce que nous disions aussi, qu'il fallait justement qu'un pays soit pacifié.
Le fait est que si les Occidentaux n'en parlent plus parce que peut-être il y a la guerre de l'autre côté, qu'est-ce qui vous empêche? Vous êtes fatigué?
Non, ce n'est pas un problème de fatigue, c'est peut-être que vous ne comprenez pas le mécanisme. En principe, pour qu'une organisation entre au Cameroun, il faut que l'État camerounais accepte que cette organisation entre au Cameroun pour pacifier la guerre. Je vous rappelle que nous, par exemple, moi, MRC, le professeur Maurice Kamto avait donné des solutions, c'est-à-dire il avait demandé qu'on pouvait appeler même les Tabou-Béki, des personnalités africaines qui connaissent un peu, c'est-à-dire l'orientation des conflits de guerre, pour qu'ils viennent au moins arranger ce problème. Mais le vrai problème qui se pose au Cameroun, c'est que même s'il faudrait que l'Union européenne arrive, il faudrait que le Cameroun donne l'autorisation à l'Union européenne à s'intégrer dans cette guerre-là. Or, il faut bien comprendre que aujourd'hui, les anglophones ont un problème, c'est quoi? C'est que malgré tous les efforts qui sont entrepris, même par eux-mêmes, il y a un blocus qui se passe en fait au niveau du gouvernement camerounais. Parce que c'est la seule personnalité qui est capable justement de dire, bon, ok, d'accord, on peut s'asseoir maintenant et ouvrir maintenant les frontières à ce que toutes les organisations qu'on peut solliciter viennent s'asseoir pour arranger ce problème. Moi, je voulais dire aussi à mon frère ici que la différence qu'il y a entre l'Ukraine et le Cameroun, c'est que l'Ukraine, c'est des territoires, c'est un pays qui a été annexé. Or, le Cameroun, on nous dit que la guerre est interne. Or, le gouvernement a dit que cette guerre qui est au nord-ouest, ce sont des sécessionnistes, c'est des gars qui voulaient créer une sécession au Cameroun. Donc, le fait d'avoir transformé dans cette logique-là, ça a fait en sorte que les gens n'ont plus trop voulu s'intéresser à la guerre. Pourtant, en principe, on sait bien que c'est parti d'un but. Et si on veut régler un conflit, il est important d'abord d'aller dans le but. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé au début? Or, aujourd'hui, On a cru que, lorsque le gouvernement expliquait aux gens, ils disaient non, non, c'est des enfants qui sont mis en colère, en 6 mois on va arrêter aujourd'hui. Je pense qu'il faut prendre conscience que cette guerre a assez duré. De 2016 en 2022, ce n'est pas quelque chose qu'on peut juste se mettre à négliger. Il y a eu des déportés, il y a eu des morts. Aujourd'hui, les gens ont perdu tout, ils ont perdu l'emploi, ils ont perdu beaucoup de choses. C'est aussi autant de considérations que je le dis, peut-être tout à l'heure tu ne me comprenais pas, je dis que c'est une volonté qui devait d'abord être nationale. C'est-à-dire que c'est le gouvernement qui devait prendre en charge ou particulièrement le chef d'État, parce qu'il faut le dire. Moi, je ne sais pas pour indexer la personne, mais il faut dire c'est son rôle. C'est lui qui est garant de l'unité nationale au Cameroun. Donc c'est lui qui est la clé de voûte. C'est nous qui lui avons confié toutes ces dispositions qu'il a aujourd'hui. Il est chef de tout. Donc il était de son rôle, ou que les gens l'entourent, et que même où on pense que la diplomatie aujourd'hui devait mettre vraiment la pression sur lui pour faire en sorte que les Camerounais devaient s'asseoir. Vous vous rappelez qu'il y a eu justement une assise ils avaient promis qu'ils devaient faire une assise justement pour calmer un peu la tension de la guerre. Mais vous allez voir que depuis cette assise, des résolutions qui ont été mises dans cette assise, rien n'a été fait. Donc on reste toujours en fait dans ce statut quo-là.
C'est pour ça que le MSC n'est pas le passé.
Mais nous en avons tellement parlé. Vous dites que nous avons apporté la preuve de toutes les partis d'opposition. Nous ne sommes pas allés aux élections à cause de ça. Rappelez-vous que nous avons été même incarcérés. Nous sommes aujourd'hui en prison à cause de ce problème du Nord-Ouest. Nous avions parlé et on continue à en parler. Vous savez qu'aujourd'hui, je prends un exemple. Vous m'avez reproché peut-être d'être un peu hors sujet. Mais si on arrive dans un débat et que le débat n'est pas dans ce sujet, si j'entre, justement, les gens ont tendance à dire, mais pourquoi ils partent du Nord-Ouest? Il y a un problème aussi psychologique au Cameroun. Okay. Les Camerounais souffrent d'un problème psychologique. C'est-à-dire que les Camerounais, aujourd'hui, dans l'information, quoi qu'il se passe, on a une peur interne. Les gens ont des barrières à ne pas vouloir traverser. Or, pourtant, c'est un problème qui nous concerne tous. Or, nous devons tous nous asseoir et en parler quotidiennement. Je vous prends un peu à rappeler que, déjà, les élus qui sont à l'Assemblée nationale, tout à l'heure, je vous l'expliquais. Il y a eu des élus dans la zone anglophone qui ont pris sur eux d'expliquer à l'Assemblée nationale que, mais écoutez, monsieur, on a un problème au Nord-Ouest. Je suis député au Nord-Ouest. Je suis peut-être sénateur au Nord-Ouest. Et le gars a tenu des discours, mais on ne l'a jamais écouté. Donc, ça veut dire qu'il n'y a pas de politique, jusqu'aujourd'hui, qui est en train de vouloir conduire à ce que la guerre au Nord-Ouest trouve une pacification. Nous aussi, on se demande, bon, OK, si aujourd'hui, maintenant, l'usage de la violence et que peut-être ils annexent tout le Nord-Ouest, la suite, c'est quoi? On ne connaît pas la suite, donc nous-mêmes, on ne donne pas la suite. Or, beaucoup de ces gars qui sont aux États-Unis, qui sont un peu partout en Europe, ces gars font des efforts considérables pour trouver des solutions, justement, pour cette guerre. Et je vous rappelle que le Canada, il l'a fait à son temps. Il a fait ça à son temps aussi, pour le dire, en fait, qu'il fallait trouver des solutions. Or, on se rend compte qu'aujourd'hui, que la guerre au Nord-Ouest, vous allez rendre compte que la diplomatie a complètement oublié, justement, cette démarche qu'il aurait dû faire.
Okay.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a lieu de faire? Je pense qu'il faut mettre une pression sur l'État.
We take a short break to continue right after.
It's an early Easter at Canal Plus. Until the 9th of April, buy your HD decoder at 5,000 francs and get a free installation. Experience the Champions League and the biggest football championships. Enjoy the best of movies and series. Make the whole family happy and spend a good time together. Hurry, it's on the 9th of April, so don't wait anymore. See terms and conditions at Canal Plus shops. Offer valid while stocks last.
Welcome back. Here you're watching Prime on my Media Prime. We are talking about reasons why the Anglophone crisis is not sounding as being very, very important to the international community, reason why they're silent about it. I will, in passing, say good evening to you, Akere Joel, that I know is watching us on Facebook right now. Now, we are looking at it, it's beyond the infighting that we see in within the ranks of the separatist leaders. Do you think it's also affecting what we are observing today? Beyond that, why is the international community not also, no, the African Union not also doing more than what we expect from the guys out of Africa? Because we would say that they are concerned with Ukraine.
The crisis in Cameroon has a political connotation which we cannot refute. This is what we need to tell the viewers. And when it comes to this point, politicians are opportunists. They do their best to magnify the fault of the opposite person such that they can better market it for their personal gains. The Anglophone diaspora, who did not get their mandate from the people, have decided to put the people in more pain than they were before 2016. These things are very simple. When you empower a young man with arm and send him into the communities and tell him to maim, no matter what happens, you have destroyed that community and that cry. The African Union is not silent per se. As we all know, there is always a phase and a stage. We have seen the phase that had to do with arm. We have seen the stage that had to do with serious armed battles on the ground. And there comes a time when you need to understand that the pen and the paper would be speaking better than the arms on the ground. So the African Union, who is not independent per se, it is very good for viewers to know. The African Union does not depend solely on herself. She has a whole lot of persons she would depend on. And we are saying that in order for this crisis, or in order to make this crisis come to an end, it would have required that we sit on the table with certain concessions made. Right now, it is very difficult for the African Union to put up or to carry up such actions because she herself is not operating very different from some of the ills projected by the Anglophones at the beginning of the crisis. I will still repeat, the Anglophone we have a legitimate problem. And the problem is that the marginalization, the union was not the union of a bigger and a smaller, or a more powerful and a less powerful person. It was a union that we decided to come together because we think up to date that it is better for us to live as one. So we have the political parties, Mr. Leo, they are not doing any good. If you look at other countries across the borders of Cameroon, in times like this, what they do is that they market it very well. They inform the world. You may lobby for other persons to come in to assist in the dialogue process, whereby when you sit on the table, they will be working on the part of the government to ensure that the government respects the people. And by so doing, they have a whole lot that they are doing. Let us borrow into the case of the special military operation in Ukraine, as Russia puts it. The European Union is handling Russia in its own way. The American Senate and the American people, they are handling Russia in their own way. Other countries individually, they are handling Russia in their own way. And little by little, Russia is feeling the pinch. When the U.S., at the beginning of the crisis, when we have not had, at the time, we never had the guys on the ground who will maim, who would openly behead somebody and put it on social media. We saw what the government, we saw what the US did to Cameroon government. They removed us from AGOA. And we know how that is affecting us as we speak. So this is to tell you that when you are doing the right thing, the people will always come behind you to assist. They are not coming to dictate, because whether we like it or not, it is good for the viewers to know. Cameroon is a sovereign country. America is not going to come in and dictate to Cameroon, but she will use the benefit Cameroon is getting from them to bring Cameroon to order, given that we are a developing economy, and these are the tools they always use. You see that even with Russia, who is a developed economy, they are still using economic tools to bring Russia to order. It is the same way the European Union would do. It is the same way the African Union would do. It is the same way the UN would do. They will not come to Cameroon and tell the Cameroon government that right now you need to go on your knees and listen to what the people are saying. No, that will not happen. So when we keep on doing what is wrong, we will never have the sympathy and the support of those who can solve the problem. Take, for example, the people back here in Cameroon. We saw it but on social media that they had given sovereignty. That is to say that the Anglophones have given their sovereignty to the Anglophone diaspora to fight for them. But the Anglophones right now, they can openly attest to the fact that the division amongst the Anglophone diaspora makes it very obvious that these cannot be their leaders. Because if you look at what is happening here, for example, you see the entire Southwest, they are not in division. You look at the entire Northwest, we are not in division. There is no way you will hear that the person from Fako does not want to see the person from Manu. But what is happening with the diaspora, the Anglophone diaspora? This group wants to tell this group that you have embezzled. This group wants to tell this group that you have embezzled. And this is what caused the US or tribunals to say that they are not interested in creating micro-states where tomorrow they will go back again to start solving problems. So if other countries have had a similar problem and the world had their ears and their eyes on it, it is because the people were speaking as one. Let me look at the case of Karl Puigdemont of the Barcelonian people. When Karl Puigdemont stood up as the leader of that particular people, he accepted and he got the mandate from the people. It is not only in Cameroon. Let us look at the case of Tibet. Tibet is said to be a sovereign state, but China says you cannot be a sovereign state. And the leader of Tibet was born in Britain, and he is considered their president from the diaspora where he is. They know of their spiritual leader, who is Dalai Lama. But what they know is that they have certain person they trust, but they are not within that country. That is because they are speaking in one voice. So the Anglophone problem cannot be compared to other problems where when the people say they want to secede, they will have to listen to. And one major thing that is impeding this is the world is no longer interested in creating micro-states. And when you say this, it becomes very difficult for most Anglophones, especially the diaspora, to listen to you. They will start interpreting it that you have received your own package. The truth is that where we are today, let us take the case of Ukraine. Why is the world giving Russia so much heat with regards to what she is doing in Ukraine? It is because accepting that Donetsk and Luhansk should become independent states within that particular Ukraine federation, it is already a problem to the world. Russia has acknowledged these countries, but who is supposed to accept this except Russia alone? So it becomes very difficult. So when you think that the world is going to listen to you, we had the Anglophone problem, which the world was already coming into it. But the moment the word cessation set in, it becomes very difficult. And so this is where we are. All the persons who came to Cameroon at the beginning of this, the head of La Francophonie, the head of the Commonwealth, the UN representatives and the rest, they are not coming to Cameroon to discuss about dividing Cameroon. They came to Cameroon to listen to and take certain evidence of the fact that at the beginning of the crisis, we saw that the state forces, like what we did see in Kwakwa, where an entire village is said to have been razed. We saw the case of Garbo, where an entire people were massacred. This caused the world to look at the crisis because at the end of the day, they understood that the government has certain responsibilities. But when you start talking about dividing the country, They themselves are not interested. I tell you the truth. Some persons may not want to believe it, but as it stands, looking at what the European Union is getting from Africa, I tell you, they will accept that there will be conflict in Africa, but they will never divide any region in Africa. Africa is not going to go above 54. Believe me, this will take the next 1,000 years, except the status quo on the ground changes, where we should stand up to manage our resources. But for the time being, as long as the Europeans are interested in our resources, they will accept conflict, which is an easy way for them to milk us out, rather than solving problems or creating states.
Apostle, I know CPDM, is it CPDM who says that these guys have been paid? Yes, but Apostle B. Valentine Ngwa, the international community is not seeing so much interest in what is happening in Cameroon, but shockingly, the civil society itself in Cameroon is not talking as much as it used to in the past. Is the crisis becoming less important, less attractive? Are there certain things that are nauseating in it, or how do we understand that even the civil society is taking very little interest in what is happening?
Mr. We have spoken so many things except the fact that people don't speak to be heard.
Okay.
They speak to be listened to. I can hear you and I don't listen to you. Mm-hmm. Both parties in question do not listen to neither the civil society, they don't listen to the masses, they do not listen to even the little effort the international community has made. We have spoken so much about people not talking. Communication is in between two persons. There is a man talking and there's somebody listening. If the man who is listening shows no effort, the man who is talking cannot remain a fool and keep talking.
Okay.
We have spoken as media houses. Cameroonians have spoken from different media platforms. International community has spoken. The Refugee Commission has spoken. The United Nations has spoken. The La Francophonie spoke. Commonwealth spoke. Tibor Nagy, when he was U.S. Undersecretary of State, spoke. Senate of America spoke. Congress spoke. Anglophones also tabled their crisis. They even took it to different quarters in the world. CDN came up, spoke. All the communities have been speaking. For approximately 6 years, the two parties in question have developed thick skin. They have developed deaf ears. They've developed the shell of a tortoise that even the venom of a viper cannot penetrate through. Where you speak as you speak, sometimes you become very frustrated. It's like a father that keeps drawing the attention of a child to a particular evil, and the child gives deaf ears. That father will one day surrender and don't speak anymore. Let's not just talk about those who are talking. Let's talk about those who are listening. Let's come to the place of the government. A lot of people have asked the government to do a genuine dialogue. They attempted doing a dialogue in 2020. The dialogue, the Grand National Dialogue, wasn't successful. They woke up. People have been calling from all angles in the world that they should sit down and discuss genuinely, but the government's approach is a military approach to solve the crisis. On the other hand, the separatists, they have been calling them also to compromise at their own end. They held on to one thing. It is after some days I heard Chris Ano saying that if it is federation they want to give, they should give federation. Let us take it while we start asking for something, and I switch off the screen. I shouldn't be hearing this nonsense by now. A stitch in time, the Englishman saves 9. If at all they were pressing for secession, and the government also was holding for a unitary state, both of them were supposed to have left the both end of the cord, let it relax. Because when you tension that end, I tension this end, it will never and ever solve any problem. They were supposed to have come on a compromise that was either supposed to be federation or confederation. But both of them were so arrogant, so proud, so full of themselves not to compromise at a certain level. After people have died, properties destroyed, school frustrated, economic collapse, I mean, economy of Cameroon is dwindling. That's the reason why they keep heaping taxes on the individual, because they have spent beyond the income. Now they are talking about federation. I heard for the very first time federation coming out of the mouth of Chris Anu.
Yeah, but Chris Anu says he was misquoted there. He says he would never stand for federation.
What misquote? Is
That's
it
what
he was speaking there? Was it Latin or Portuguese? He's talking to people who have gone to school. He said, let us accept federation for now. While we are trusting God for secession.
5 years.
He shouldn't have come on television to talk that nonsense. Now, if at all they came under this thing called federation some years ago, I'm sure by the time that tension was, the government equally would have compromised. It is but certain that if these two parties in question were very, very hot at that particular time, had compromised, they would have landed some, because why? The government was feeling the heat of the crisis. And the government would have at least compromised at that level. Now people have died, properties destroyed, school brought down, economy is crumbling, and then now they are coming to talk about compromising. Why should you be so arrogant to tension things to a level where you are coming to talk about compromise of federation when people have died? So the problem is not just we're talking. The U.S. Congress has written to the Cameroonian government. The U.S. Senate written to the Cameroonian government. The Norwegian Refugee Commission also said that the Anglophone crisis is the most neglected crisis in the world. They were speaking. Let's not talk as if they have not spoken. The UN Secretary General came to this country and spoke. La Francophonie, particularly Scotland, came here under Commonwealth. They spoke. When they keep speaking, and those who are supposed to listen give deaf ears, do you think we are idiots to be speaking? He said the best answer to a fool is to keep quiet. These parties in question have turned the international community and local community to be fools.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and everyone in the studio. Well, I do enjoy the analysis and responses from your panelists. My own response is that the diaspora has done everything possible in terms of publicity. But the point is that the international community has not interest in the ongoing crisis in Cameroon. The other major concern is about the frontline leadership of the those fighting for the Cameroon government. We understand that it is a regime not only to the Anglophone problem, but to anyone who tries to challenge its leadership. Prince Bile is writing from Berlin in Germany. Good evening to you, Prince Bile. Always watching and contributing. I hope you understand why I edit what you have written as I read down. Yes, that's also my work. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the panelists. The Anglophone voices have been heard, but the government have done all they can to cripple the international effort, just like they did with the All Anglophone Conference, because taking the Anglophone to table means relinquishing power. That is the government's nightmare. Franklin is writing from Thailand. Hello, Mr. Liu. I think the West knows exactly what is happening in Cameroon. There have been a lot of documents on this crisis. So many reputed international NGOs are in Cameroon. They have facts on what is happening on ground. So what do the West and US want? There is an evil hand on the crisis and nothing lasts forever. It shall surely come to pass. Tambe is writing from Muteng, and good evening to you. Tambe, but it's got Udena, has an evil hand there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. One of your panelists claims that our Anglophone ministers are working for Yaoundé. Are the Francophone ministers working for the Francophones? I'm John, writing from Germany. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and dear panelists. Just want to thank my media Prime, especially this program Prime R, in doing their best to see that our voices are heard not only in Africa, but the world at large as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. Yes, we are doing so. Mba is writing from Bamenda. Yet those in the diaspora think that we are not doing enough. Instead of appreciating the little we can do given the situation. But Apostle Ambi says that many persons, because I raised the issue of the civil society, surprisingly the civil society in Cameroon seemingly are going about their normal life, looking for their normal projects as if the Anglophone crisis no longer exists, and praying that things should die down so that they can implement their projects across the regions. Yes. But are they tired, and the international community also, have they been taken for fools for 5 years?
Mr. Leo, there is one thing you should know. about the system of and the government that we have in place in Cameroon. It's a government of repression, and they have every resources to repress the population, whereas the population, on the other hand, do not have that stamina to fight back at the government. That one should be very clear. You need to know that as we are talking about civil society, if we were to take stock of those who are in prison today because they spoke, including journalists, Wazizi disappeared because he was talking about Anglophone crisis. Many of them have suffered because they were talking about Anglophone crisis. So today we cannot say that there are fear. Fear has clouded many of them. And today, you have to understand that there are times that even for you, sometimes even to get a panelist to come to some platforms today to talk about Anglophone crisis, Mr. Leo, is difficult. Difficult because they know that you can leave that TV station and you get disappeared along the line. You may not arrive home. They fear, and people want to see their children grow. People want to live again. People want to enjoy life again, Mr. Leo. But one thing stands out tall. I have often said Yaoundé has the watch, but God has the time. Why do I say so? Yaoundé can do everything to muzzle down everybody not to talk about Anglophone crisis, but until the right thing shall be done the right way, the Anglophone crisis remain. It is even in the spirit. Even our mothers who never went to school, who never went to primary school, they know that the Anglophones have a problem in this country. When we were talking, and some people say we are blaming diaspora. The role that this government also played, remember there was a time that the government dispatched a lot of people from Yaoundé to counter those in the diaspora. And when they arrived there, those weak diasporas who joined this thing for gains accepted, they gave in. They were bought over. And before you knew it, their Facebook accounts were dropped. They no longer talk about it. Whereas they were supposed to be consistent, persistent, and remain on the path of the truth to keep representing the people. But when the Yaoundé regime successfully dispatched people to go to diaspora, and you discover that some of the diaspora have given it and they'll be bought over, how else do we maintain the strength, the weight of what the international community used to see as gravity on the field? It is true that the regime, which of course is failing, is indisputable, has committed atrocities. The Amber Boys have committed atrocities. But the Amber Boys on the ground do not have that counter-offensive to go and meet the international community per se, like the government is doing. They can commit and then they have the means to go to US, Canada, wherever. Since they have the means, they have the resources, they will have to quell it down. But one thing I know for sure is that time will cut off with both the government and those in diaspora of the people, the pain of the people, who sold a genuine cause because they wanted to get money. Time shall expose all of them.
Time shall expose all of them. We move straight to our second topic. We are just 30 minutes to discuss. We have seen some videos emanating from the northwest and south regions where we find people who have murdered. Started, I'm sure, 3 weeks ago with some others in Oku. We have seen a greater crowd today still in Oku. We have seen some mothers in around in Boyo division who also came out in their numbers. We saw numbers in Balangi who came out. And what is happening? At least you had the opportunity of talking. I want somebody who can tell us what is happening. When when I saw the videos, I got to you in the womb to see if what we are seeing is the truth. you placed a call to Boyo. What were you told?
So, just like we were saying, these two topics are interwoven.
Okay.
You know, if you get to any mother in the village today, or any father, the mother has to present to you the difficulties, the hard times that they go through in the hands of the boys we call Amber boys, Mr. Leo. Except your heart is still like the heart of a stone, you will have to shed tears. Parents tell you that when these things started, sometimes they were even offering fowls to the boys, to the boys, if you like. They were offering food, thinking that these boys were there for the interest of the community. Sooner or later, these same people became the target for the boys, which is so disheartening. If you are a motoso man, you have to pay tax.
You pay to who?
No, to the Amber boys now. You have to pay. You are going to the bush to do your motoso work, you pay. You fell down to 30,000 a year. Parents are being beaten. They are asked to sit in the mud. Their food at times, they go to a funeral. They have their own corner that you are obliged. You are obliged to feed them and give them drinks. Before you have a traditional wedding in your compound, you have to pass through them to get an authorization. Now, with all these things put in place, the population was now left with no other choice than to stand up and say, enough is enough. Imagine the rate of unwanted pregnancy has increased to a point where we don't know where we shall take food to feed such children. So, and then you discover that these chiefs became so useless like toys in the hands of the boys. You hold a chief, you beat. You hold a chief, you ask him to sit on dust, mud, which is unheard of, unacceptable. Now the people say no. We thought that you people were for us. If back in history we ran away from Nigeria because of Igbophobia and bad treatment, and in 2016 you people say we should run away from Yaoundé because Yaoundé has been maltreating us, Yaoundé has been killing us, and today you are the one killing us right at our doorsteps. Our hands are no longer there, so they are washing their hands like the Pontius Pilate because they have seen hell still here on earth.
But did you spoke with people on ground and they told
I am giving you the information that I got from those who said they came out to say enough is enough. I am not using my words. I am giving what the population of Boyo
told you. Yeah, but before now, have you had any similar reports, or the thing just came up now?
No. They have been happening. They have been happening. I know of a grandfather who has a problem with the leg, who was asked to sit on bed in mud for about 3 hours. A young man came to even offer to pay, and the young man was asked to sit down near to the. And at the end of the day, he still paid before leaving. So these are atrocities, and it goes back to what I was telling you, that you may have a good case, Mr. Leo, but how you present it in the court makes you to either have a positive verdict at the end or lose the case.
Ok. Monsieur Chumba, est-ce que vous avez vu les vidéos qui ressortent du nord-ouest et du sud-est où la population est carrément en train de... certaines communautés sont en train de dire qu'on en a assez?
Vous savez, c'est une souffrance énorme. Je ne sais pas si souvent les gens mesurent même la douleur des autres personnes. Parce que la meilleure façon souvent même de gérer même une entreprise, c'est d'avoir des gens qui sont en dessous et qui vous amènent des informations au-delà et qui vous permettent de vous orienter. Je pense que ce problème au nord-ouest, sud-ouest aujourd'hui ne date pas d'aujourd'hui. Il faut savoir que nous avons des déplacés qui sont au Nigeria. nous avons déplacé sur toute l'étendue du Cameroun. Et ces déplacés ont été obligés de repartir des zéros. Ils n'ont pas eu de maison, ils n'ont rien eu. Certains, au début, ne mangeaient même pas. Ils étaient devenus comme des assistants. Donc, c'est-à-dire que des réfugiés de guerre. Donc, vous voyez, ce sont des difficultés énormes qu'un être humain ne devait pas mériter dans son pays d'origine. Nous avons bien observé que le problème au nord-ouest, nous le disons encore une fois de plus, il faudrait que le président de la République vraiment prenne ses responsabilités pour trouver des solutions politiques à cette crise-là. Et je pense que la première solution, c'est d'abord même déjà de libérer les détenus de la crise qui sont en prison aujourd'hui. Au moins pour donner un élan que vraiment nous voulons aboutir à un dialogue inclusif pour que ces phénomènes s'arrêtent. Moi, quand j'entends souvent le gouvernement dire « avec qui va-t-on dialoguer ?» Ça me pose des questions. Je me demande s'il y a un côté où il y a des Camerounais à part entière et d'un côté où il y a des Camerounais à part. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a des Camerounais qui ont tous les droits et d'autres qui n'ont pas les droits. Donc ce n'est pas un problème de vouloir dialoguer avec qui. On peut dialoguer avec des gens, il y a des chefs supérieurs là-bas, il y a une communauté, c'est toute une installation. Moi, vraiment, je pense qu'il faudrait vraiment que le chef d'État prenne des mesures au-delà de la cosmétique et prenne vraiment aujourd'hui des réformes majeures. Avant d'engager vraiment un dialogue, il doit prendre vraiment des réformes majeures et surtout se faire assister par l'ONU ou par l'OUA ou par l'Union européenne, par toutes ces organisations pacifiques, même par les anciens chefs d'État qui sont là aujourd'hui, qui peuvent être prêts à venir justement trouver des solutions pacifiques à ce que la guerre au nord-ouest vraiment s'arrête. Vraiment, je me mets à genoux pour dire que nous invitons vraiment ces personnes qui sont autour du chef d'État et que le chef d'État vraiment, s'il le sait, il est déjà âgé, c'est un papa, il n'a plus rien à prouver, mais je pense que le mieux en tant que papa, c'est de retrouver ses enfants et de les réunir peut-être autour d'une table et de trouver des solutions à cette guerre aujourd'hui qui est en train de prendre des tournures et des tournures. Cette vidéo qu'on nous présente, ce sont des mamans qui pleurent, ce sont des mamans qui crient, elles sont dépassées, elles ne savent plus à quel sens se vouer, elles ne savent plus où aller. Elles veulent juste tout simplement qu'on leur donne la possibilité de vivre, de vaquer à leurs occupations et de trouver qu'il y ait la paix. Parce qu'il y a des personnes là-bas la nuit, ils ont peur. On ne sait jamais qui peut venir chez toi dans la nuit, t'interpeller ou t'agresser. Il y a l'insécurité partout. Alors cette insécurité fait en sorte que aujourd'hui, par cette insécurité, on fait qu'on est au nord-ouest et au sud-ouest n'a plus de vie. Mais on pense toujours jusqu'aujourd'hui que la seule personne habilitée à ce que à ce que la paix se retrouve au nord-ouest, je pense que c'est le chef d'État parce que c'est la seule personnalité qui est capable d'intervenir. Parce qu'il faut savoir, on a eu des commissions des ministres qui sont partis au nord-ouest. Oui. Mais le lendemain, quand ils rentraient au nord-ouest, les armes encore crépitaient. Le Premier ministre a fait des descentes là-bas, mais dès qu'il est reparti, ce sont encore des armes qui crépitaient. Donc ça veut dire que la solution n'est pas là. Je pense qu'il faudrait que le président de la République prenne sur lui humblement. Il n'y a pas de honte à ça. Okay. Vraiment de faire un effort pour que la paix soit retrouvée au nord-ouest et au sud-ouest.
Yes. How do we get to where we are with what he just described? That this is what people are living. At least you live in the southwest. Do you identify yourself with what this man is saying? Have you seen cases like that? What happened? Is it the fact that we fail to check what the guys are doing, or they are acting on orders to do what they're doing?
Mr. Liu, you know, I'm running a center, Recover and Rehabilitate for Better Tomorrow, and we receive persons from the different parts of Cameroon, given that we are there to assist those who do not have the means to go to school, and we are there to empower others and to guide others. We have been receiving persons from different parts of the Republic coming to the center, and they are explaining their problems and how it started. There are people who say that where they are coming from, they have suffered from the hands of the non-state actors, as well as they have suffered from the hands of the forces of law and order. Given that whenever they come into that area, there is always the issue of persons running, because where you have the non-state actors, the state forces will always come there, given that that is their job description, to do what they have to do. With the case of why most of these areas do not want these people anymore. I think it is obvious. Mr. Leo, at the beginning of this crisis, we observed that because of the broken system that we have in place, most of our young people had gone into drugs. And, you know, when a drug addict or when somebody who is into drugs, hard drugs, receives an information on how he or she is going to be getting his drugs, it becomes very easy for such a person to be recruited. And within the course of the crisis, most of these guys who were taken out of the prisons and added to those that were on the ground who were already into hard drugs, when the monies that the diaspora promised them did not actually come on time, and some were not coming forth, given that they were already into drugs, and you know when somebody is a drug addict, it is very difficult for such a person to stay without taking drugs. And so they were left with no choice but to go back and start kidnapping and collecting money from the people in the name of taxes. I want to take the case of a young man whom we had in my 16, where he had levied persons to pay about 50,000 CFA francs a year. Now, come to think of it, how would you be fighting for somebody in court and you are worse than the person that person is running from as you present it? So it makes that person to find safe havens in the hands of your devil, not his devil anymore. And this is the reason why you see some of these communities like in Boyo, like in Oku, where we saw the population coming out. And what is very remarkable is that we have women, the population is predominantly made of women. And this is to tell you that in as much as we think that they are our mothers and they can easily accept our wrongs, but our mothers could not longer take it. And so all they had to do was to say, no, enough is enough. So I think that what is happening is the impression that some of these guys got from the diaspora, the amount of money promised them, they could no longer have these monies. I listened to a certain audio making rounds on social media where one of the guys who have decamped, or one of the persons who have laid down his arms, I think it should be in the name of one former General Nambere, where he said one of the boys within the level of the DDR center had to even steal the phone of a Genam officer and wanted to go and sell it. So you realize that it is because of what? Drugs. So they are struggling to keep themselves with the drugs they are used to. It is the reason why they have resorted to start doing these things. But on the other hand, I am happy because our communities are now realizing that these are not the kind of people that will save us out of this. I will still repeat, we are in the crisis. We are in the Anglophone crisis. But the Anglophone problem remains. The Anglophone problem is not solved. Like I said, the Anglophone problem is the Anglophone man doesn't want to see what you give to the Anglophones to be on the basis of gift. You should know that at the beginning of this union, we came together because we thought that it was better for us to live as a people. But what is happening right now is a certain group of people felt like, since the government does not want to listen to and understand that the Anglophones have problems, they will rather take it to the level where arms should set in, and when they contest or when they stand against the state forces, it will solve the problem, which is not solving the problem. And most of the communities that support it, as we are getting them on social media, they have decided now to why not take back their lives. They have suffered a lot. Mr. Leo, if you have been that mama who left Oku, came to Douala, in a place where you buy from Maggi to oil, which you never bought oil from your own local village or from your village, then you will understand why it is a need for you to tell these boys that enough is enough. That you are in a funeral ground, you are crying your lost. and you are asked to pay. In your loss, in your own pain, you are forced to pay. Sometimes you even have about 4 crates of Mimbo to supply to those who have come to condo with you. But the boys, when they come, they'll tell you to give them a certain number, which in most cases is above your budget. So most of these things, the people can no longer take them. So at the end of the day, they have decided to shoot themselves on the leg. And so there is no way such an attitude can have the support of the people except we go back to the drawing board. But I am not also saying that the state should look at what is happening and start celebrating. Because in time past, we have seen several state officials who have said that they are your children, go and talk to them, let them stop doing what they are doing. I want to call on the state that now that most of these communities are coming out and they are telling the voices, as was said or as they are known commonly, that we do not want you anymore. I think this is the right time for the state to why not set in and start doing those things which the people have been asking for many years. I think it is going to solve a problem. And I also have an issue because like we expected, in a time like this, we have seen these communities coming out. What is the role of the local assembly? Therefore, what is the role of the regional assembly of the Northwest and the regional assembly of the Southwest region doing in a time like this? Because when we see these people coming out like this is to tell you that they have faced much difficulty, and what you need to do in a time like this is to go down to the field and start doing the things which are lacking. Okay. Most of these communities do not have potable drinking water. Most of these communities lack a lot of things which I believe that if they are put in place, we will solve this problem. We will not need that white man to come in as most people would rather prefer. We do not need these white voices, okay, like I always put it. They are coming in with their own interests. They love to see us fighting. If we accept that they should come in, then we should be rest assured that as they are coming in, they will be milking us out.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Watching you live from Yaoundé. In anything has a strategy, but government is using the wrong one. Just by waiting and see what will happen in Yaoundé, because all government officials are on duty just to sign budgets, are forgotten that people would need that money as homeless. Okay. Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa, the civil society is not doing as much. Are you surprised that the population, some communities are rising up just to say that we just received a very, very disturbing video sent to me now, where some mothers and fathers from Oku have been taken. They have been asked to sit down with their breasts open, and because they are said to have gone too much. Yes, it's not good to watch. Yeah, but are you surprised by what is happening, what we are observing in Fino?
I'm not surprised, except you have not done critical analysis of crisis in the world. Okay. If you've done critical analysis of crisis in the world, you will understand that we, the Southern Cameroonians, jumped into a crisis without any form of preparation. If a pig gives birth to piglets and doesn't have food to eat, it will end up eating the piglets one day. That proverb fits a square peg in a square hole when describing the Anglophone crisis. This crisis was so spontaneous, and the promptness of the crisis took many, many Anglophones by surprise. It is true, there have been a marginalization, but preparing to go to war as a country was spontaneous. When this war was declared, it was but normal for us to have sat down, calculate the cost of the war, calculate our tenacity, calculate how long we may resist before launching into that war. The Bible says nobody goes into a war without being prepared. The reaction was based on emotions. The reaction was based on feelings. Because sometimes you need to look at a battle and understand that you are not able to wage this battle at this time. Withdraw for some time and prepare yourself. We cannot start a war against an established state, a running government with sophisticated weapons and a trained military with lances, cutlass, and sticks. rubber guns, without any support, without any aid. The preparation was not there. So there was but every evidence that one day when they run short of materials, they run short of what they need to face the war, they will turn back on the same people whom they claim to be defending. I sang this thing since in 2017. I kept singing it that we have stepped into something that we are not prepared. And because we were not prepared to step into this thing, it is but certain that you are going to fail. You cannot be aiming to reach Yaoundé and your fuel has to end only around a day. It is poor preparation, so it cannot give peak performance. If they were prepared for a war, then I would have understood that they knew where they would get everything that would sustain the war. But it could not possibly go like this. So when you tell me if I'm surprised that they have fallen back on the people, maiming the people, kidnapping the people, torturing the people to collect money from the people to fight the war, it's all an indication that they have run short of materials and they do not have the finances needed to sustain the crisis.
Yeah, but are you surprised by the reaction also of the people?
I cannot be surprised by the reaction of the people because why? Nobody can be beaten. You cannot tell me that you are out to liberate me and then I become a target. The language does not tally with the action, because the enemy in question right now is not the people of the grounds of Northwest and Southwest. The enemy should be the state, but the people have become more of the enemy. If the people rise up to speak what is not good, they are being beaten, they are tortured, they are maimed. You are the one that's supposed to protect my integrity, protect my interests, defend me. How come you have become the finger that is biting me again when I expected you to defend me against the aggressor? So if they react like that, it's because they too are emotional, they have feelings, and they have worries.
Yeah, but now you say you raised this alarm some years back that if care was not taken, things were not going to work out well.
Yes.
I'm sure you have raised that concern also,
yeah,
and also of others. But till date, even when you are still sounding the alarm bell, many persons think that you are talking like this because you've been paid by government.
If I was paid by the government, I would have achieved things. Mr. Liu, let me tell you, it is costly to run a war. War is not political propaganda.
Why is it difficult for people to re-strategize and even think of a different way?
Let's calculate the casualties caused by wars. What Russia has got with Ukraine for, imagine the might of Russia. Yet Russia is facing difficulties confronting only Ukraine. With the military might they have faced a lot of casualties. You don't know what America lost by fighting the war in Kuwait. The Gulf War.
Even the war in Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine. Ukraine is going down.
America itself is
for how many weeks? Ukraine is now begging the people of the Kenyan embassy to support them in a crisis that has taken place for 2 weeks. And we are running as a small group of people without a sufficient amount of money for the past 6 years. How do you expect? War is sometimes resistance. The Napoleonic Wars in those was resistance. Sometimes you don't win because you are sophisticated. You win because you have the capacity. And the government has been playing with time to make sure that every energy and resource we have becomes exhausted. You will realize that the way persons were contributing in giving in the very Anglophone crisis in the beginning is dropping because why? It seems like they are investing and the thing is only being drowned. On the side of the government, you don't know how much government spends per day. And all the military camps that have been set in the different places like Kondo Titi, Bafut and other places, it has costed government huge and whooping sums of money.
It's about $1 billion a day.
Now, $1 billion francs is spent by a state per day to wage a war against the people who are still contributing money from one quarter to another, from one tribe to another, and not everybody in that particular part of the country is in support of the war. How do you expect the financial stability, ammunition, as well as the well-being of those who are even standing to fight to be sustained? That is the problem with war. It reminds me of Samori Touré with the Scotch Aid policy, where the French came to Africa, he deserted everywhere, and as they were moving closer, they didn't have what to eat, and that was how some of the things became very, very difficult. War is resistance. Anybody that can be able to resist for a long period of time, the person that wins the war is not who is clean at the initial stage. Because if you look at it critically, when the Anglophone crisis started, militaries were falling down like flies. Gendarmes were dying every week. They were carrying them in tons and in trailers and in pickups, calling them to come and bury in mass graves. That is not the issue. Who kills greater is not what matters in a war. It's the capacity to sustain resources and resist till the other person surrenders. And this is where we have a deficiency. We might have done some wonderful things in the past, and people are living with the past memories. Anybody who does not give analysis as things evolve, and you live off because of yesterday, you are not a good political analyst. We are analyzing things based on what is on ground. We are not analyzing things because of past glories. Somebody like Mike Tyson used to have heydays on earth. But when he went to the level where he couldn't fight again, even though Holyfield beat him, second time beat him again, is to tell him that his heydays were over. So let's be able to understand that as the days are going by, the financial stability and the resistance and the number of soldiers equally that were fighting in the beginning are no longer there. Why don't we reason so fast before we become a laughing stock? It is but common sense.
Are the communities exhausted, like he is saying? They really...
Even the support, if you look at the level of the support, it was very rare to find other community who write against these boys in those days. Everybody gave their support, they gave money, they gave cola nuts. People even walked charms on children's body because they knew that victory was coming. As the days are going by, everything is falling. Our capital is falling, arms are falling, soldiers are reducing, support is going down, and even the means of livelihood to eat and sustain the war is no longer there. Common sense demands that you do not have the tenacity economically, militarily, in terms of number of soldiers to sustain the war to the end. That's the common sense. Not because they don't want to fight, because the means is not there.
Okay. Yes. What do you see happening in the days ahead with this? You've seen the video of the mothers in Oku. Yeah, are these the scenes we're going to be seeing in the days, months ahead, where the community and the guys are
the non-state actors? You see, it is only helping them to lose even the 0.5 support that might have been left for them, because you cannot explain to me why, as we speak right now to you, there is road blockade between Fundong and Bamenda in 2 areas. Now, tell me, we have only one cardiac center in the whole of West Africa, which is Shishong. If somebody had a cardiac problem today and wanted to go to Kumbo, the person will not reach there because the route is blocked. If somebody wanted to go to St. Martin de Porres Hospital in Ginicom, the person will not go there because the route is blocked. If somebody was to go to Mbingu in labor to go and deliver, put to birth, the person cannot reach there. That is to say that the liberators have become predators, Mr. Liu. And because when you find yourself in the hands of a predator like that of the cobwebs, what do you have to do? You must strike, you must put your legs astride to find a way out of that cobweb. That is what the people have found themselves inside. Because somebody you know too well, or somebody you used to know too well, since you greet him this time, he tells you that you are who to greet me with the hand. You don't have to greet me. He tells you to sit down, ask your ID card. It is unbearable. So I think they need, if they must continue with the war, they need to re-strategize. They need to remap a strategy that will hold the attention of the people, because you cannot live in a community with the same people that you maim, you beat, you punish them, you cut their fingers every day. It's unheard of. So they have to re-strategize, map a new strategy, and find a way if they must continue. Okay. But then, as they are doing it, they and Yaoundé are fighting their own, while Anglophone calamity remains. And like I said, until the right thing shall be done at the right time, the problem of the Anglophones in this country remains, because it is very big to be solved with tricks. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Liu. It's painful to hear the blame on the diaspora, but that pain is not shared by the government. If not, they would have come out with dialogues in the embassies around the world between Cameroonians, and maybe another one in Cameroon too. Max Beguni, writing from Dusseldorf in Germany. I am sure there was a time when people were sent out that they were not, some were battered now. They were attacked in, I'm sure, in Germany and in South Africa. South Africa was not really good, but the government, things have changed. Maybe they may be more receptive this time around. Dr. Isidore, writing from Bamenda, says, good evening to you and the crew on board, Mr. Leo. Good evening to you too. Hello, Mr. Leo. I hope Chrissy war was not because we don't have water no road. Government should rethink again. If not, then Asgard will fail on them. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Paddy Nick from Bamenda. Why is all the blame going to the boys and not also the military? Is it that the military is a saint? We are not discussing the military, we are discussing the boys and the communities today, please. They're looking at what is happening with the community and the boys. The videos that I've just received now, telling me that I have videos of the boys actually who have caught many people in Oku, stripping mothers with their breasts open, and they're talking to the mothers. And there is an accompanying audio that I've received. They say they have just shot many of those that they caught. So we are going to investigate to see if people were killed alongside those who were taken. But non, c'est toi, une minute. Hein? Oui. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour que ce qui se vit s'arrête?
Moi, je pense que la première solution qui a lieu de faire aujourd'hui, je pense que si le chef d'État demandait ne serait-ce qu'une session extraordinaire à l'Assemblée nationale pour qu'on essaye de voter même une loi qui peut aller justement dans l'apaisement de la crise dans la zone anglophone. Parce que vous savez, je vais vous dire quelque chose. C'est que nous assistons aujourd'hui, par exemple, au nord-ouest, avec la violence, même aux côtés du sécessionnisme, c'est la drogue. Parce que quand vous êtes sur l'effet de la drogue, vous n'avez plus un côté humain. C'est-à-dire que vous êtes complètement désaxé de ce côté humain-là. Donc on peut voir aujourd'hui, il y a eu des vidéos où les gens étaient éventrés, où les gens vous montraient même qu'on mangeait de la chair et tout. Donc c'est-à-dire quand les gens sont déjà sur des effets de cette drogue-là, ça pose un problème. Or, ceux qui sont victimes aujourd'hui, qu'ils meurent, ils revenaient à l'État, qui est justement le garant de notre sécurité, de notre vie, de protéger ces personnes-là. Donc, combien de temps ça va durer? Parce que ce que nous oublions, c'est que la guerre n'est pas gagnée par les plus forts. Mais la guerre est souvent gagnée par ceux qui n'abandonnent jamais. Bon, pour vous dire que si on persiste à vouloir faire croire que voilà, on est plus fort, on a écrasé des gars, il y a encore des crépuscules qui vont naître demain, et peut-être ils vont encore peut-être mieux se constituer, parce que tout à l'heure, il le disait, Joseph, il le disait tout à l'heure que qu'il y a eu un manque d'organisation. Mais moi, je voulais seulement lui dire qu'au début, les gars n'étaient pas partis pour la guerre. C'est l'oppression qu'il y a eu. C'est cet état de petite violence qu'il y a eu au niveau un peu du nord-ouest qui a certainement peut-être poussé les gens justement à la violence. Okay. Et c'est ce que nous vivons aujourd'hui. Donc je pense que ce n'était pas un état d'esprit de guerre. Okay. Je ne pense pas que...
Ok, la guerre n'était pas préparée à la base?
Non, je veux dire que les gars ne partaient pas... Vraiment pour ce pays-ci, je pense que les anglophones sont des gens pacifiques. C'est des gens qui savent s'asseoir en famille et discuter. Okay. Ils n'ont pas un état d'esprit de violence. Mais quand vous êtes opprimé et que la violence est exercée sur vous, ça peut vous révolter et ça vous pousse justement vraiment à répondre à la violence aussi. Donc je pense qu'il faudrait qu'on fasse tout, que le chef d'État vraiment soit humble, d'organiser vraiment des rencontres et qui crée même une session extraordinaire à l'Assemblée nationale pour que la paix revienne parce que ça en est trop. Il y a trop de morts.
Do we need
a legislation on that? No, definitely not. I just want to be honest. If we are looking at a piece of legislation on that, then we will be going back to 1972. Where predominantly the decision came out to scrap off the federal system in place. That would be obvious, given that we are already in an obese House of Assembly.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, but yes. In these communities where you find people openly challenging the separatists, what do you see happening in the future?
I am aware that they are going to face more difficulties, and this is the time for the separatists to take this as very important points, all what we have raised here. They should not rather look at it to be bad ones. Now, this is it. In the days of the German government, I remember we had a certain German governor who found pleasure in calling our people and having sex with their children in front of them. So this is the same thing the non-state armed groups are doing to the people. And what happened at the end of the day? We had to see the Germans kicked off from Cameroon, in as much as that happened through a war which they were defeated by the French and the Brits. One thing is clear, it was not going to last long. So this is a piece of advice. These mothers who came out in Oku and in other parts of the Northwest region, whom we are watching today on social media being stripped naked in front of their own children and asking them to obey them, these are all things that will go back to squash everything. And these are the things that keep on. The international community, which the non-state armed groups are craving for. This is what we should not forget. Please, those videos are the worst of their type. And the moment the European Union, whom we had them, said something about this, the African Union, even though she is not independent when it comes to resolving crisis, she needs to rely on the master. The US Senate and the UN we keep calling, please, they are going to discredit this. I'm speaking to the arm wing of the diaspora. These are things you need to know. And this is to tell you, like we said here some time ago, that who is calling the shot. I think you have had a program here asking for who is calling the shot. Interestingly, Apostle Ambe was equally there. We are now seeing that the people on the ground are calling the shot. And what is happening, like my brother there said a while ago, drug. This is what the state needs to know, that we are not into this because we want it. Not that we wanted it because we never even thought of it. We don't want this. But because of what? The drugs. The diaspora is no longer in control of the boys in the bush. This is what we need to know. I don't want to believe that somebody like Chris Anu would accept that his own mother be stripped naked because she came out to protest against the fact that while she is in the funeral or the funeral ground crying for her loss, she is tasked. Get it? And so if that is what they are doing, then they should be rest assured that when a popular revolt, I said this some time ago, that it is only the people who can solve this crisis. I tell you the truth, if we come out in our numbers, we will solve this crisis. The state is going to listen to us to solve the Anglophone problem, and we will equally kick off what the arms which we are dying of today in the Northwest and Southwest region. Whether we like it or not, these are not attributes of the man from the Northwest and Southwest regions of this country.
Et je voulais même t'ajouter qu'il y a le Soudan du Sud aujourd'hui qui est en guerre. Ils ont fini par arrêter la guerre en s'associant. On a vu le cas de la Côte d'Ivoire. Quand Barbeau est sorti de la prison, c'est sûr que Ouattara a su que s'il ne s'associe pas avec lui, une guerre peut renaître. Donc ils se sont entendus. On a le cas du Sénégal avec la Casamance. Les gars se sont associés pour arrêter la guerre. Donc tout est dialogue. Lorsque les gens sont frustrés, il faut les écouter. Il faut les écouter, c'est fraternel.
I think that's the challenge. The deaf ear is a bigger problem.
You spoke before him now.
Yeah.
You did not? Okay, come in. Yes.
So, Mr. Leo, my last word was just that, like my brother said here, the Germans lost it all in Cameroon when they started practicing public flogging, beating people in front of their wives and their children. And they will be losing it if they continue in that vein. Just to offer this quick one, the strongest army in the world will never be above a determined population.
Yes.
Because that determined population knows exactly what is good for them. If the population is not for you, the army, you will never win.
Okay. To conclude, Swiss cannot call any dialogue when mothers are stripped naked, because even the Swiss people who are calling those dialogues, they have a conscience. You have a clean case, but you have a poor approach. All of us are into this.
Okay, we want to say thank you to all of you who came to discuss this topic this evening. Tomorrow, we're going to be asking the question, what is wrong in our secondary schools? We know that a teacher was tapped this morning by a secondary school student who ended up dying. We've also seen another video of a student actually disrespecting another female teacher in one of our secondary schools. What is not right with us? Thank you to the production team. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.